they see a win. They see an accomplishment. And that's the trick, is actually seeing the accomplishment. Because when we went to the courts, which the courts, all the judges are appointed by the Democrats here.
Right.
So we weren't going to get a fair trial. And I even worried about that when we were spending all that money to do it. And there's still a few cases that are whittling their way through. And I think they're going to say what they usually say: you don't have any standing.
That's what they always say.
That's what they always say.
Yeah.
How can someone who's a voter in an election, who wants to review the election, not have standing? That's the craziest thing.
What you have to do, I always say, you have to show the harm. The harm is what gives you the standing. If you're just complaining about the system, they're going to say, go talk to your legislator. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you can say, look, this harmed me. John smashed into my car, so I'm the victim. I have standing to sue John. Okay. Well, this system took away my ballot. It violated my so that gives you standing. So you have to prove the harm. And so many people all around the country, it's like Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So many people around the country are like, they come to me, Dr. Frank, I've got this new lawsuit. Look, I'm showing how the state is doing this illegally and the county's doing that illegally. And I'm filing a lawsuit against them. And I just look at them and I'm like, I've already heard this 200 times. You're not going to get anywhere this way. Now, I'm not against lawsuits. Because, like, for example, earlier this year in Georgia, Professor Halderman hacked into the Dominion machines right in front of everybody in the court case. So so what that does is it makes it public knowledge. So, but the case is over, and did it change anything in Georgia? No. So you don't get any net effect from but you get education out of it.
Right.
So the public so I'm not against lawsuits, but I don't count on them for any remedy.
That's the only thing we got from our lawsuits, was the information. And one of the greatest things that I got to hear in a lawsuit case was the judge ruled in favor of the county after stating that if they ran the election the exact same way they ran the election before, they would not get the same results. That's what the county said. And the judge said, well, if you cannot get the same results running the same election the same way, I'm going to go ahead and find in your favor, since you can't produce the information that they need. And we lost the case, but we got some really good information that if they took the same ballots, and they ran it again,
they'd get a different answer. Wow. The Tim Sipple case, I testified in that one up in Washington County. And in that one of my favorite parts of it was that I had to sign an NDA, and what happened was, Sipple and Janet Dysinger, they requested copies of the voter rolls, which they're entitled to.
Right.
And the local clerk screwed up and accidentally gave them a complete backup of their entire EMS.
I remember this, yes.
Yes, and so I have that backup. I signed an NDA so I could look at it. And one of the things that we were able to bring up because of that, and this is why I'm not against lawsuits, I just don't expect them, is it was revealed in court that your ballots are not anonymous.
Right.
Okay, so all of the ballots cast in your state, I could figure out who cast those ballots. And they're like, wait a minute, our ballots are not anonymous? No, they're not. And so exposing that is an outcome of that. Another important thing about that lawsuit is that was also filed against, it was a restraining order that your Secretary of State and Attorney General filed against Tim Sipple saying, you can't use any of those data because if any of that becomes public, then it makes our systems hackable. And they basically, your Secretary of State admitted that all your machines were online.
Right.
And during the court case, she was such a sweet lady. It's like, I'm guessing she's 70 or something, a sweet little Japanese lady with white hair. I love these people. They're public servants. They've worked for a lot of years. And she's the one who accidentally gave him the complete backup of the system. So she was feeling very defensive. And she was like, everybody says, I don't know how to run my elections. She says, I'm training my replacement. And she says, and I can turn the modems on myself. And I don't even need a password. He actually said that in the testimony. I mean, So court cases have a place.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But did it change anything in Oregon?
Not a damn thing.
And so I don't expect that to give us our remedy.
Right.
Just public education.
But the public education I don't know, it's invaluable. It's really,
We agree.
the information on there is just incredible what we've gotten from some of those court cases. And that's why we know why we don't have standing. We know
Right.
why they're using that. And so I agree with you. Start with your own county. That's what I've been doing for
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
As an activist,
That's where your power is.
that's where my power is. I can't do anything in Salem. I can't do anything across the state. I certainly can't do anything in Washington, D.C. And even if I was there, I couldn't do anything because I'm one man in a giant cesspool.
People say, I want to be a legislator. I'm going to get elected to Congress. I'm like, why?
Why? Yeah,
What are you going to be able to do there?
right.
Okay. Your power is in your own town. Get on your school board and fix your schools.
So we were at the county commissioners meeting and the Democrats showed up because the commissioners were going to turn down the money they were getting from that
From
group.
the CTCL,
Yes, which is a Zuckerbuck.
Center for Tech and Civic Life.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg funds that group,
Yeah.
and by a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. I was
Oh.
blown away how much money they got. And so they were offering $50,000, and the clerk wanted it. The commissioners didn't like the source, so they voted against it. And I walked outside with a lady who is an environmental lawyer. Her husband was the only Secretary of State from Bandon who ever served as the Secretary of State. So he's like Saint Bradbury, of course.
Yeah.
And she comes up to me and she goes, how dare you? How dare you go in there and say these lies about that? And I said, they're lies. And she goes, why don't you think for yourself? And I said, that's insulting. First off, I did think for myself. Just
Right.
because I come to a different opinion doesn't mean that I'm
Right.
stupid, or it just means I disagree with you.
What's wrong
And
with
she
that?
goes, well, if you want this kind of authority, you should run for commissioner. And I said, why would I do that when I already have the authority I have? As a citizen, I have the authority to be
Yes.
part of my government. I have the
You're
authority
the sovereign.
to what? Yeah, I'm the sovereign.
Yeah.
I'm the one who can walk in there and
Yeah.
demand questions
Yeah.
to be answered. Why would I give up that authority to
Right.
sit in a seat where I have to represent people like you?
Yes.
And then I have to answer to you.
Right.
I have the authority. And
They answer to you.
Yeah.
You're the king. You're the sovereign.
But that's what the Democrats think. She was a
Yeah.
typical Democrat, and her
Yeah.
and the other lady there
Yeah.
who were top in the Democrat Party telling me,
Yeah.
well, you don't have any authority. Where are you getting this idea? No, I am, like you said, I am the sovereign. You are the sovereign. Like
Yeah.
I said, I'm a selfish bastard, but
Yeah.
it's a right that you have too, lady.
Yes,
I
exactly.
feel sorry for him. As much as I was mad at him because they pulled me out of the meeting, I was pissed off the fact that were too damn stupid to realize how much power and authority they have as an individual. And that's what we got to
The
instill
left
in
looks to
people.
government for power.
Always
The right looks to the people for the
the
power.
individual.
And so and that's why it's collectivism versus individualism. And I think America was founded on the idea, the fundamental principles of our God-given natural rights enumerated in the Constitution, our liberty, our freedom, those are our natural rights.
Right.
And that is the true power. But we've been kind of hoodwinked into thinking
Right.
that the government, no, we have to keep the government as small as possible to keep our power. And,
Totally.
And we've lost that idea.
We have
I'm not-
way
I'm
lost.
not against government. I just think that it needs to be us
Right.
temporarily.
We're the anarchists. And
Yeah.
I've met anarchists in Portland
Yeah.
during the riots
Yeah.
yelling, you're a bunch of fascists. No, I'm not a fascist. I don't believe in socialism.
Right.
Well, I'm an anarchist, as he's carrying a sign that says he's for single payer insurance. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't think you think that means what you think
Yeah,
it means.
yeah.
It's like you're losing the meaning here. So the kids are even screwed up when they're up there protesting and they're yelling they're Marxists, they're anarchists, and you're like, I don't even think you understand
No.
anything of what you're saying, because to me the greatest amount of freedom is being that sovereign in a country that respects those rights, not
Yeah.
a collectivist that can take away those rights at any whim of the collective.
Yes.
That's scary. And so when those women, and they're Christian women, this is the funny thing. So when they go to heaven, do they have to defend themselves against the group they now have placed them with?
Yeah.
Or do they only have to defend their individual life? Because that's, if I have a concept of heaven, my concept of defending myself to Peter and Paul before I get through the pearly gates is I'm going to argue against what I've done.
Yeah.
Whatever my friend's done, hey, that's on them.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Democrats believe. And to me, that's a scary proposition because it's hell on earth what they're breeding.
God's idea of government is not a constitutional republic. That was our idea. I like it. God's idea of government was a benevolent dictatorship.
That's right.
Where he was the king.
And the rest of us were leaving each other alone. Okay?
Right.
My favorite way of thinking in terms of this is it's called the Golden Triangle of Freedom. And it was a prominent theme if you read through the Federalist Papers. And the notion is that in order for us to have liberty, we have to have virtue. In order to have virtue, you have faith, but in order to practice faith, you got to have freedom. And so the three things amplify one another. And when I say that in order to have freedom, you have to have virtue, people are confused by that. I was at first. The idea is, see, if I leave you alone, you can be free and I can be free. But if I'm like raping your wife and pillaging your land and stealing, okay, now you're going to have to take away my rights.
Right.
Okay. But if we have virtue and we behave virtuously towards one another, then we can have liberty. So in order to have freedom, we have to have virtue.
And there you go. That was the most of the interview. We went on for a couple of more minutes after that. Dr. Douglas Frank is a genius. This guy could go on forever. It's listening to his stuff is just incredible. I wasn't, you hear these election deniers, the election people who claim the election was stolen this way, that way, and you hear them all the time when, especially right after 2020, and of course, what we saw with our own eyes. Most of us knew instinctively that something was wrong with that election. And we had to do something about it. Many of us were we were ticked off. And so this is part and parcel why we started Citizens Restoring Liberty. And I shouldn't say I really didn't have anything to do with the creation of Citizens Restoring Liberty, but I was there with the group as they developed, and I knew that just like many groups that they would fall victim to what most organizations do. They would fray and fracture and collapse because it's hard to organize individuals who just want to live their own life and be left alone. That's the problem with our own side. The left, they love collectivism. They love to be gathered up into rooms and told what to do and what to say and how to be in the special club. You want to be in a special club, the special little wokes club that they got there, the wokes club. And I'm not interested in being any part of that. So you would have to realize which way I'm voting, and I'm sure many of you are going to vote the same way. I really got to think. Dr. Douglas Frank, that guy is phenomenal. And look into his work. Before you judge Dr. Frank, look into his work and check out his research on the voter rolls across the nation. It tells a one hell of a story. And I think if anyone looks at the work without, calling it BS, without going in with a predetermined outcome already, against whatever Dr. Frank is doing, just stop listening to the naysayers and just went in there and looked at the work. If they actually looked at the work, I think more people would be just absolutely blown away with what he's able to show according to the statistics, the data, not the statistics, but the raw data from the voter rolls. And they tell a story, and it's just mind-blowing. And that's why it's important to vote. They're stuffing the voter rolls. I believe they're stuffing the voter rolls. I believe they're stuffing the voter rolls, whether it's intentional or not. That's a whole other thing. But the fact is Oregon is being sued right now by Judicial Watch because we have really bad voter rolls. They're dirty voter rolls, which means they are being stuffed with people, the names of people who are dead, who have moved, who don't exist, who are college kids, who can get double ballots. Whatever the situation, That's going on here in Oregon. That's legit. That's happening here. We have a stuffed voter roll, and they can put so many of those people who make up the phony voter rolls, the phantom voters, so to say. And the phantom voters are the ones, that's the term Dr. Frank uses to describe someone who they cannot be found, but yet they voted in an election. We know they voted. We got it, the ballot. We've got their signature. It's been checked. And yet we can't find the person. We went to the address where the ballot is from, and nope, that person doesn't live there. Oh, he doesn't live there. Well, then who voted for this person? Oh, we don't know who voted for that person. Okay. And we've actually seen that. We've done this, and we're going to do this again. We're going to get the list of people who are potential phantom voters. And we're going to go out there and we're going to find out who these people are or who they are not. And I don't know what to believe, but I want to find out. And I would think that anyone who's a registered voter would want to find out if our voter rolls are being manipulated. And if they are being manipulated, first, who is manipulating them, but how are they being manipulated? We've got to clean up whatever the problem is. But we're there, Judicial Watch wouldn't just waste their money to sue Oregon. There are plenty of states to sue, but we're the worst. We've got the worst voter rolls. And that says a lot when you're competing against, places like, Detroit and New Hampshire and New York and, such the states like that. It's like Detroit isn't a state, but you know what I mean? Eastern states. A lot of eastern states are just as corrupt as anything on the left coast here. And so I don't know. I just think that if we're the one state being sued by Judicial Watch, we really got to be concerned about the voter rolls. And talking to Dr. Frank in that interview, I can tell you what, it was a lot to do about what we're going to be facing. And like I said, we can withstand it. Whatever happens, we can withstand it. But after the election, we need to start finding out more of why the results that happened. We got to find that out, because there are some strange things, and we found these strange things in several of the different elections by investigating the clerk's office, investigating the election by going through the numbers and the data from the people who voted, the people who didn't vote, the categories in which they were voted on. And we've gone through that data, and it tells an interesting story. And I don't have time for that today, but we've done all that, and we're going to have to do that again after the election. And so I'm personally, this is just another, I don't know, just another pinnacle in time that signifies just a little bit of what work we're going to be doing, because really what's going to prove how good we are is what happens in the legislature coming up this fall. And if the federal government, if there are no good people sitting in the House and the Senate, if the Republicans do not retain at least holding the House, at least holding the Senate, if they lose and Trump doesn't win and we get Kamala in there, it's going to be one bad couple of 4 years. And hopefully we can go through this stuff and find out what's actually happening so that we can hold some of these people accountable. I don't know. I don't even know if it's possible, but I'm glad there are people out there like Dr. Frank who's forming groups, and there's groups like that here in Southern Oregon who are looking into election integrity issues. And I'm glad that that's happening, and I'm glad that that he allowed us just a few minutes to do an interview with him.